Now it's time to work on the cast iron tops. Here I have both wings. You can see on this side, I've already cleaned it up, and I'll show you how I did that in a minute. On this side is what this one looked like before we got started. This one even has some more stuff on it. It looks like something's been spilled on here, so I'm going to use this rather crude scraper just to go over it and pop off some of that stuff. There's no sense trying to sand it off. So now I'm going to go back with this 120 grit sandpaper and just start sanding the whole surface. And when I'm done with that, we're going to use a finer grit sandpaper to clean it up. I'm using this stiff sponge block to back up the sandpaper because I want a flat surface when I'm sanding the cast iron top. You'll notice once again I'm going with the direction because this too will leave sanding marks and actually a grain to the metal. So now that I'm finished with the 120 grit sandpaper, I want to get this dust and rust that was on here kind of mopped off. So before I start with the next grit, I'm just going to add a little bit of mineral spirits to the rag and wipe it down. And that'll help pick up those rust particles that are in there. I'm also going to use the mineral spirits when I sand very briefly over this surface with 320 grit wet dry sandpaper. So we're just going to add a little on here and sand it one more time. Now this will take some of the sanding scratches out from the previous 120 grit, and by using your hand this time and a finer grit, you can see you'll pick up some more dirt that's down inside there. I suspect that mineral spirits is acting as a little bit of a solvent to loosen up some of that dirt too. You wouldn't want to use water on your cast iron top, of course, as I was using it on the paint when I was sanding that cabinet. You can see these wings have been pretty beat up over the years, but when we checked them out in that first episode, they were dead flat. Well, let's see what we have here. See the ends? I think it needs a little more work here, and there are some spots here. I'll see if I can get those out. Yep, there they come. Okay, now down here you want to sand right up to the edge using the flat of your hand and your fingers. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that's better. And we'll do the same down here. I think I need a little bit more mineral spirits. Again, that mineral spirits is acting as a lubricant when sanding so that this 320 grit doesn't get clogged up and keeps sanding. That's the beauty of wet dry sandpaper. think that's going to do it. So there's one last chore to do, and I want to take care of that before I put the base back on. I want to put a hole in the back of the machine so I can accommodate a dust collection port. So on the back, near the bottom, I've already drawn an outline of the shape of the hole I want to make. So just like in cutting out the hole in a piece of wood, we want to first drill holes so we can get a jigsaw blade in here. When you drill a hole in metal, the first thing you have to do is dimple it so that your drill bit doesn't drift around. These dots represent the holes that I'll have to make to attach the dust collection port to the cabinet. So I'm going to drill a hole there as well. So when you're drilling metal, a few things to remember. We've already dimpled those spots. We first want to drill a small hole as a pilot hole before we drill a larger hole. And we want to add a little lubricating oil where we're going to drill as well. So I've stepped my way up from the smaller hole, and now I'm ready to drill the finished hole size. Now I've changed bits so I can enlarge the holes where I will attach the dust port to the cabinet. And this will allow me to use a sheet metal screw that'll self-tap right into the cabinet steel. So now to make the cutout, I'm going to use my jigsaw with a metal cutting blade that has a medium tooth. A fine tooth would be used for either finer cuts or thinner metal, and a larger tooth would be for heavier metal, rougher cuts. And don't forget, safety glasses are a must, so make sure you're wearing them. So I just want to knock off the sharp edges from the cutout with this file. One last screw to go on this dust port, and then we'll be all done. See you next time. We're going to put it all back together and start tuning up this saw for use.